Welcome back, awesome students. The purpose of today's video is for you to be able to place rational numbers in the correct location on a number line. And if you have a really strong number sense, you're going to be able to look at these rational numbers and do that pretty easily. And if that's the case, that's awesome. But I will be showing in this video how to change fractions to decimals, since that's what we learned in our previous video. So let's start with these first 5 rational numbers. -4. We know that's the same thing as -4.0. So I'm going to come down here to -4, and here it would be on the number line. 1/3. Now, like I said, some of you might know what 1/3 is, and you'll be able to come down to the number line and put it in the correct location. And if that's the case, go ahead and do that. But I'm going to show how to change 1/3 to a decimal. In math, the fraction bar means to divide. So I'm going to do 1 divided by 3. 3 does not go into 1, so I'm going to add my decimal, bring it up, and add a place value. 3 goes into 10 3 times, which is 9, and I have 1 left over. 3 does not go into 1, so I need to add another place value. 3 goes into 10 3 times, which is 9, and this pattern is going to continuously repeat. So we know that 1/3 is the same thing as 0.3 repeating. And I know that 1/2 is 0.5, and that's right here on the number line. So 0.3 is going to be less than that. So 1/3 is going to be right about here. -2.5. Now, if you don't know that 0.5 is the same thing as 1/2, let me show you how that is. That is in the 10th place value, the 5 is, and I can simplify 5/10 by dividing by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. So that's why it's the same thing as -2 and 1/2. So that's going to be in between -2 and -3, right here, -2.5. 5/4 is an improper fraction because our numerator is bigger than our denominator. 4/4 would be a whole, and we have more than that. So 5 divided by 4, 4 goes into 5 once, and we have 1 left over. 4 does not go into 1, so I'm going to add a decimal, bring it up, and a place value. I'm going to bring my place value down. 4 goes into 10 twice, which is 8. I have 2 left over. 4 does not go into 2, so I'm going to add another place value and bring it down. 4 goes into 20 exactly 5 times. And so I'm done. So 5/4 is the same thing as 1.25, or 1 1/4. Some of you know that 25 cents is the same thing as 1/4. So 5/4, here's where 1 is. 1 1/2, remember 1 1/2 is the same thing as 1.5, and this 2 is less than the 5, so I know it's going to be less than 1 1/2. So here's where we will place 5/4. And then finally, -3 1/2 is the same thing as -3.5. If you don't know how to do that, that's because, remember, if we multiply by 5, we're going to get that 10th place value, so that's 5/10. So -3.5 or -3 1/2, because we always want to use the original rational number, would be right there. Okay, so here are our rational numbers from least to greatest. We're going to do one more example together, and then you're going to try one on your own. If you turn the page, you will find our next example, and we're going to graph these 5 rational numbers on the number line. So 1 is the same thing as 1.0, so we're going to come down here and graph 1. -4/5. We're going to worry about the negative at the end, so we know it has to be less than 0. 4 divided by 5. 5 does not go into 4, so we're going to add our decimal and a place value. And 5 goes into 40 exactly 8 times. So as a decimal, 4/5, but it's a -4/5, would be -0.8. So here we're going to go to 0 we know that it's going to be greater than -1. And so right here would be -4/5. -2 1/4. Now, when I have fourths, I think of quarters because we know that 4 quarters is $1. So if I have 1 quarter, that would be 25 cents. Now, if you don't know that, then you can change 1/4 to a decimal by doing 1 divided by 4. 4 goes into 1. It does not, so we put a 0 at a decimal place value. 4 goes into 10 twice, which is 8. We have 2 left over. 4 does not go into 2, so I add a 0 and bring it down. And 4 goes into 20 5 times. So there it is, 0.25 or a quarter. So -2 1/4 would be -2.25. So if I'm graphing that on the number line, here's -2. -2.5 would be there, and -2.25 is actually greater than -2.5, so it should be closer to 0 on the number line. So that's going to be right there. That's our -2 1/4. 9/2. 9 divided by 2. 2 goes into 9 4 times, which is 8. We have 1 left over. 2 does not go into 1, so we add our decimal, bring it up, and a place value. Bring that place value down. 2 goes into 10 exactly 5 times. So 9/2 is the same thing as 4.5 or 4.5. So we're going to go here to 4, and it will be in the middle of 4 and 5. So here is where our 9/2 would be. And then we have 2 7/8. Let's not worry about the whole number till the end. So 7 divided by 8. 8 does not go into 7. So add a decimal and a place value. Bring our decimal up. 8 goes into 70 8 times, which is 64. We have 6 left over. 8 doesn't go into 6. So add a 0, bring it down. 8 goes into 67 times, which is 56. We have 4 left over. 8 does not go into 4, so we add our place value and bring it down. And 8 goes into 40 exactly 5 times. And we're done. Now don't forget we had 2 as our whole number, so that would be the same thing as 2.875. So I'm going to go to 2, 2.5, or 2.5 would be right there. So it's going to be right about here on the number line, which would be 2 7/8. Okay, now go ahead and try one on your own. Let's see how you did. Go ahead and check over your work and see if you ordered those rational numbers on the number line from least to greatest correctly. If you did, let's go ahead and celebrate. All right, our last two examples are asking us how to compare rational numbers on a number line. So example 3 asks which number is closer to 0, 2/3 or -3/2. And I'm first going to change 2/3 to a decimal. So 2 divided by 3. How many groups of 3 go into 2? 0. So I need to add our decimal and a 0. How many groups of 3 go into 20? 6, and that would be 18. We have 2 left over. Add a 0 and bring it down. How many groups of 3 go into 20? 6. And this pattern is going to continue to repeat. So 2/3 as a decimal is 0.6 repeating. 3/2, 3 divided by 2. 2 goes into 3 once, which is 2. We have 1 left over. Add our decimal and a 0. Bring your 0 down. And how many groups of 2 go into 10? 5. So -3/2 would be -1.5. So to figure out which one is closer to 0 on the number line, I'm going to graph down here. So let's start with 0.6 repeating. I know that's a little bit bigger than a half, which is 0.5. So here's 0.5 right here, and we're going to graph it a little bit further than that. So this would be where 2/3 is. And then -1/2, or our -3/2, would be right here. And how do I know which one is closer to 0 on the number line? It's whichever one has the shorter distance. So 2/3, which was 0.6 repeating, is closer to 0 because its distance is closer to 0 than -3/2. So the answer to this one is the 2/3. And finally, our last question asks us to determine the halfway point between -2 and 8. As you can see down here, I already filled in my number line where I had the -2 and 8. And the halfway point, we're going to find where the middle is. So I'm going to connect my numbers. And then here you can see that the 3 is left in the middle. So the halfway point between -2 and 8 would be 3. So you should be asking yourself, can I place rational numbers in the correct location on the number line? If you can, that is great. If you're still feeling a little bit uncomfortable with this lesson, please come to class with your questions. Ta-ta for now.